Egypt, a name that feels eternal. We think of stone, gods, and pyramids reaching for the sky. We're taught it stood alone. A miracle in the desert, untouched, unmatched, unconquered. A civilization without rivals, without equals. We're told that civilization flowed only one way, down the Nile, from north to south. But history left the best part out. By 730 BC, Egypt was breaking apart, not from foreign invasion, not from plague, but from chaos within, civil war. Rival kings claiming divine authority. Cities ruled like personal kingdoms. Temples abandoned, rituals forgotten. The sacred balance of the universe, what the Egyptians called mat, justice, order, harmony, was broken. And when Egypt cried out for stability, salvation didn't come from Europe. Not from Greece, not from Rome. It came from the south, from an African empire that history tried to bury. This is the story of Kush, the African empire that conquered Egypt. South of Egypt, a rival power rose. It was older than Rome, richer than Greece, and just as deeply spiritual as Egypt itself. The Egyptians called it Taseti, the land of the bow, because its warriors were feared. Its archers could put an arrow through a coin at 100 paces. While Egypt weakened, Kush grew stronger. Watching, waiting, and then came the moment. King Piye, a man who didn't see himself as a conqueror, but as a savior. When he marched north, it wasn't a barbarian invasion. It was a pilgrimage. His soldiers were ordered to bathe in the Nile before battle, to purify themselves, to sprinkle water on their bodies. Why? Because they were entering holy ground. Piye wasn't coming to destroy Egypt. He was coming to fix it. He reached the city of Hermopolis, the gateway to the north. The local king Namlet locked the gates. Piye didn't blink. He built a siege tower. He surrounded the walls. He declared, "I will not let the comers out come out, and I will not let the goers in go in." He squeezed the city until it choked, until King Namlet crawled out on his belly, offering gold, his crown, his wife's jewelry. But Piye ignored the gold. He walked past the palace, past the treasury, straight to the stables. He saw the horses, starved, ribs showing, thirsty, and this conqueror, this warrior king, wept. He turned to the defeated king and said, "As Amun loves me, it is more painful to me that these horses have suffered hunger than any other crime you have committed." That is the man who conquered Egypt, not a savage, but a king who valued life more than gold. By the end, the entire Nile Valley was unified under an African king. History calls them the 25th dynasty. The world remembers them as the Black Pharaohs. They ruled from Memphis to Thebes, and they sparked a renaissance. Temples that had sat in ruin for decades were rebuilt. Ancient texts that were rotting away were recopied. While Egypt had forgotten its gods, Kush remembered them. Then came Taharqa, the greatest of them all. He didn't just rule, he built. He turned his eyes to Jebel Barkal, the pure mountain in Sudan. A massive red sandstone cliff that looks like a cobra ready to strike. At its base, he built temples of white sandstone so bright it blinded you in the sun. Inside the mountain itself, he carved sanctuaries to the goddess Mut. He covered the walls with gold leaf. He wanted the world to know the center of the world was no longer Thebes. It was here, in Kush. But Taharqa's ambition wasn't just stone. It was global. He appears in the Bible, the Book of Kings, the Book of Isaiah. When the Assyrian Empire, the most brutal military machine of the ancient world, marched on Jerusalem, ready to burn it to the ground, who stood in their way? Taharqa, king of Kush, an African pharaoh, marching an army hundreds of miles to confront the most feared military force on earth. He stood between the holy city and total destruction. But bravery cannot stop technology. The Assyrians had a secret weapon, iron, swords that didn't bend, spears that punched through bronze shields like paper. Kush fought with courage, but Assyria fought with industry. After brutal campaigns, the Kushite kings were pushed back, south, out of Egypt, back to the safety of the cataracts. And then came the crime. The later Egyptian pharaohs returned, but they were insecure. They couldn't handle the truth that they had been saved by foreigners. So they started the Great Erasure. They climbed ladders to the highest temples, just to chisel out the names of Piye and Taharqa. They smashed their statues. They rewrote the chronicles. They tried to delete the 25th dynasty from the hard drive of history, to make it seem like they never existed. But you cannot kill Kush. They moved the capital south, to Meroë, a city of iron and smoke, where they built more pyramids than Egypt ever did, and where a new kind of ruler emerged, the Candaces, the Queen Mothers, warrior queens. Centuries later, when Rome conquered Egypt, Augustus Caesar looked south. He thought Kush was just another tribe to be crushed. He was wrong. He met Queen Amanirenas, a one-eyed warrior queen. She didn't wait for Rome to attack. She struck first. She led 30,000 soldiers north. She smashed through the Roman garrisons at Syene. She took captives, but she took something else too. She found a statue of the Emperor Augustus. She cut off his head, and she took it back to Meroë. But she didn't put it in a museum. She didn't put it on a shelf. She buried it under the steps of a temple, so that every single day, every time a Kushite went to pray, they would step on the head of the Roman emperor. Rome sent legions to get it back. They fought. They burned. But they could not conquer her. Rome, the empire that conquered the world, signed a peace treaty with Kush. And the head of Augustus? It stayed buried, under their feet, for 2,000 years. So why is this story hidden? Why are the Black Pharaohs treated like a footnote? Because this truth changes everything. It proves that African empires didn't just exist. They ruled. They didn't just survive beside the great powers. They humbled them. You can't colonize a people if you admit they once wore the crown of Pharaoh. You can't call them savages if they were the ones who taught you how to pray. Kush couldn't be defeated forever, so they tried to erase it, but stone remembers. And history, when told honestly, always comes back. This was not a footnote. This was a warning. And this was only the beginning. If you're ready to keep uncovering it, subscribe. Because next, we move into the Age of Warriors, the Zulus, the Dahomey Amazons, and more. Africa has many more secrets, and I'm going to tell you all of them. Thanks for watching.